we're going to do a little more with the camera and the projector. So I'm going to load up a Disney design. I think I'll take Daisy. I like Daisy. Oops, she's too big for my hoop right now. She would probably work without any room around her. But let's go ahead, we'll take her, say set. All right. So, no, she's not gonna work, I'm sorry. I'm thinking different hoop. I have to delete and go back and get a smaller one because I see she's out of the border, out of my hoop area. So I can see it right away without going into embroidery and trying to do it. Let's go ahead and get Minnie again. And we'll say set. So now what happens, your neighbor comes over and she wants you to sew Minnie Mouse on some fabric for her. And you say, I really don't think it's gonna look too good on that fabric. And she says, no, I really like it on that fabric. And you say, okay, I'll show you what it'll look like. So you put the fabric in your hoop, and I'm just laying it in there. And then you touch the camera to scan and take a picture of it. Now she'll see exactly what her design would look like on the piece of fabric she's got. Not too good, huh? Doesn't show up. It's not bad, but it's not great. Okay. So then we're going to come back and we're going to turn that off and say close, but I have to go up and delete again. So I go to page 10 and delete. This delete is only for the camera that you use in embroidery, not the camera or scanning that you do in Design Center. So I'm going to take this fabric off. And we're going to put another piece of fabric on here. Okay, this looks more like Minnie and Mickey and all. So I can take a picture of this fabric. It won't let you scan if you already have a piece of fabric in the background. So that looks pretty cute on that. So we'll say close there and go to embroidery. Now embroidery, I want to look at my projector because I want to line that up over to the left. So it's going to show. Okay. So now I can take my projector, move it up over here, and I'm going to move my design to be in that area. So I can tell exactly where it's going to sew. And this is why I'm saying that this works so great for the Dream Big panel. Now you can see my image of my Minnie and where she's going to be right there. And if she's going to be too close to the seam line, if I have a pocket in the place, whatever it is, so I can work with it and move her around. See? It's one of the greatest functions. Yeah, the black doesn't work too great. I would think 95% of the time I leave the white background on. So that would look pretty cute. It wouldn't be too bad. I'm just say okay. If I had sewed Minnie and then I needed to go, my machine came unthreaded or my thread broke or I ran out of bobbin thread, I always come down here in the plus or minus and I can back up a few stitches. But if I'm in the middle of the design, and I'm just going to put some stitches up there, some numbers. If I'm in the middle of a design and I have to go back to the beginning of that section, just touch the up arrow once. It takes you back to the beginning of that color. If I touch it up once more, it's going to go to the previous color. But that's an easy way to go back. You can use the up arrows. You can also, like I said before, come up here and click an area that you want, but most of the time it won't take you right exactly to the beginning, so use the up arrow to make sure you're at the beginning of it. Just another little tool to play with. Also, you have a camera if I want to look and see exactly where my needle would come down. And there's my needle and my hoop, so I could see exactly where it's going to start sewing and line that up if I needed to. Usually just the projector and your fabric scan are what you're going to use the most. While we're on this screen, a little change of subject here, but you have your thread cutter and your jump stitch. It's right next to the word return. There's a pair of scissors. So if you click on that, it talks about tension, which you shouldn't have to adjust at all. Then it has your end color trim and your jump stitch trim. So end color trim means at the end of each color it would stop and cut your thread. If you don't want that, because you don't want those little 3/4 inch threads on the back side, you can turn it off. The jump stitch trim also trims in between jump stitches of the same color. If you don't want that one on, you can just simply turn it off. Now, one little trick. So sometimes when it trims a jump stitch and it goes to start again, it doesn't catch the bobbin thread. And you have to stop and pull it back up again, or the needle thread is cut and it won't go. Lengthen your jump stitch trim and you should eliminate a lot of those problems. Okay, so that's just to help and say okay. If I wanted to put this design in memory, I could come to memory. I have my choice, putting it in the sewing machine, putting it on a USB, the other USB, smart card, or Wi-Fi. I'm going to put it in machine memory for right now. So we're through with that design. We're going to touch the home key and say okay. Anytime you have multiple designs on the screen, you would have to click delete for each one. But if you touch the home screen, it eliminates everything at once. Okay, what was I going to do? Let me see what I'm going to come get. These are for mug rugs. We did one of those in a paddock. You see my fabric is still there because I didn't go to page 10 to delete. Let's say okay. All right, let's just go get Mickey or Minnie again. I'm going to return, go back. We'll get a Minnie. We'll say set. I thought I did that once. I guess I didn't. I'm going to go back to embroidery. In the embroidery, you have the needle with the plus and minus. So you can always advance to where you want to look at things. One problem with the projector is you can't use the projector if you're in the middle of a stitch. You can't. So what you have to do is write down, or remember what number you're on, bring this back to 0, then use your projector, then advance it back to where you were. But what I was going to do is I was going to come here and put some stitches in. And I'm going to say, uh-oh, it's late and I'm tired. I want to go to bed. So I'm just going to turn off my machine. Don't panic. It's going to tell me to take my hoop off. So I'll get it ready. Turn it back on. And just get it to cycle through and say okay. You have to be patient. It's thinking. Okay to recall and resume previous memory. Okay. Took me right back to the stitch number where I was at. The interesting thing about this is if you ever bump your hoop, or your hoop hits the wall, or your wine glass, or whatever, turn the machine right off right away, because then it will recalibrate itself to where it should be and put it in the right position. And it works every time. When I do those large cross-stitch designs, I can't finish them in one night. So I always turn off my machine, turn it back on the next night, and it's always exactly perfect. On cross stitch, you can tell if it didn't line up, but it's always perfect. So that's just another little hint and trick that you can use.